Hi everyone, I'm Minju Kim and I am a graduate teaching consultant at the Engaged Teaching Hub. It's great to meet you all through this video. Welcome to video 2 in our oral exams training video series. This video will focus on adopting an equity mindset in administering oral exams. After this video, you will be ready to define implicit bias and describe the potential impact it can have on interactions with students, and differentiate between equity mindset and deficit mindset in teaching. Also, you'll be ready to identify strategies that support an equity mindset in administering oral exams. Now, let's start by thinking about a time that you received a test or an exam back from an instructor. What do you look at first? Usually, your grade. What next? You look for corrections or where you got points off. What did I do wrong? This is a very normal reaction, to focus on what went wrong because that is where it often seems like our grade comes from. How many points off 100? But it's easy to lose sight of what went right when we look at learning through this lens. It's equally important for learning to understand not just where misunderstandings lie, but also what someone is doing correctly. As instructors and TAs, that correct thinking is a foundation we can build on to extend and enhance a learner's understanding of a concept. When we adopt a mindset that assumes that all our learners are equally capable of learning our material, and that we can help them learn by building on their unique strengths and existing knowledge, we will call that an equity mindset. With an equity mindset, we question assumptions and biases. Rather, we ask ourselves, what can I do to support this specific student's learning right now? We call it an equity mindset because it's especially important to be aware of the tendency to make assumptions about what students can or can't do in relation to implicit bias. All people unconsciously make assumptions about others, often on the basis of stereotypes, especially when we're thinking or working quickly. These biases exist beyond your conscious awareness, and they're often contrary to our conscious values and ideals. Implicit bias is a greater predictor of our behavior than conscious values, and it could greatly affect how an instructor or an IA or a TA interact with their students. As an instructor or IA or TA, making these assumptions about our students can have a negative impact on them. For example, if we assume that a student from an under-resourced school or area will not be prepared to succeed at the highest levels in our class, we might be less likely to give them constructive critique if they're struggling in our course because we are attributing their struggles to something outside our control or theirs. Although we might not mean to, and they might be well-intended, such as, it's not their fault. These assumptions can adjust our expectations of our students in unfair ways and cause us to treat them differently. We call this deficit mindset, as opposed to an equity mindset in which we assume students are all capable of succeeding and consider it our responsibility as educators to take actions to support their success. So, how can we implement an equity mindset in an oral exam? First, listen not just for errors, but for what students have done well. If you're giving feedback, either during the exam or as a follow-up afterward, be sure to highlight what went well in the exam as well as what could be corrected. Especially when a student is struggling to answer, consider what positive understanding are they demonstrating that we could potentially build a conversation on. Consider asking the student to restart their thinking from the topic or location within a problem or question. Also, take a moment before each exam to consider your own mindset. Implicit bias is most active when we are rushing, reminding ourselves before starting an interaction to view all students as equally capable individuals can help us ensure we are treating them fairly. During the exam, be aware of the assumptions you might be making, such as, this student isn't doing well because they didn't study. That could be true, but we don't know that. And making that assumption could cause us to disengage from our interaction with the student. On a closely related note, Remember that the exam itself is a learning opportunity. Whether a student is answering well or struggling on that day, the exam is intended to measure and, if possible, extend the student's understanding from where it was. Students will be at different places in their understanding. Our job as instructors, TAs, and IAs is to assess where they are so that we can help them build on their skills and knowledge to grow. As an important note, adopting an equity mindset does not mean only giving positive feedback, praising incorrect answers, or saying that an answer is correct when it is not. These do not support students to learn. It does mean, however, going into an exam with an open mind about each student's potential to perform well and interacting with students in ways that help them build on their understanding. An upcoming video will focus on giving effective, honest, and supportive feedback to students. Now that we've learned about equity mindset, to finish up, please take 5 to 7 minutes to reflect on these questions about the content from this video and record your responses on our Google form. There are 3 questions. 1. What does implicit bias mean, and why is it important that we are aware of it as instructors? Please give one example of how implicit bias might be relevant in an oral exam situation. 2. What is one strategy you plan to implement to adopt an equity mindset when you're administering oral exams? 3. Why is it important to help students recognize what they have done well in an exam in addition to potential errors? Okay, thank you for watching. Please remember to submit your reflection responses before continuing to the next video. I'll see you then.